Have you ever noticed someone who prefers to stay home while everyone else goes to a party? Someone who doesn't answer their phone and feels no guilt about it? Someone who isn't bored by themselves, but rather recharges, rejuvenates, and feels alive only when no one is around? Most people look at such people with incomprehension. They're told, "You're weird? You need to socialize more? You're lonely and unhappy." But what if that's not true at all? What if a love of solitude isn't a weakness, a fear of people, or depression, but a special personality type with a unique psychology? Today, we'll explore 8 profound truths about people who choose silence. And if you recognize yourself, don't be surprised. The first and most important truth: people who enjoy solitude don't feel lonely. This is a fundamental distinction that most people don't understand. Loneliness is the pain of a lack of connection with other people. It's melancholy, emptiness, the feeling that no one sees or hears you. Self-sufficiency, however, is something entirely different. It's the ability to find within oneself enough resources, interests, thoughts, and emotions to feel whole. Psychologists call this inner fulfillment. A person with high inner fulfillment doesn't need constant external stimulation. They can spend hours reading, thinking, creating, observing the world from the window, and still be truly happy. Not because they avoid people, but because they don't depend on them to feel fulfilled. Research in positive psychology shows that people with high levels of self-sufficiency tend to have more stable mental health because their mood isn't dependent on external factors, whether someone called, whether they were invited somewhere, or whether they received praise at work. Neuroscience offers a surprising answer to the question: why do some people crave company while others prefer silence? The answer lies in the fact that the brains of people who prefer solitude literally process dopamine, the primary pleasure neurotransmitter, differently. Research shows that introverts, and especially those with a pronounced preference for solitude, have a longer and more complex dopamine pathway. This means they take longer to experience pleasure and are quickly overwhelmed by too many external stimuli: noise, crowds, fast-paced conversations, and intense experiences. Extroverts, on the other hand, respond to dopamine more quickly and powerfully, so they actively seek out external stimulation, parties, new acquaintances, and thrills. They need to recharge from other people because without external stimulation, their dopamine system remains dormant. People who enjoy solitude get their dopamine from other sources: deep thought, creativity, books, observing nature, solving complex problems. They don't need company to feel alive. Their brain finds this fuel within. Have you ever noticed that a person who remains silent in a group often knows more about those present than everyone else combined? This is no coincidence. People who prefer solitude develop a rare skill: deep observation. While others are busy talking, interrupting one another, and trying to impress, a person accustomed to silence observes. They notice how the other person's facial expression changes when the conversation touches on a sensitive topic. They perceive the contradiction between words and gestures. They read the mood of the room before anyone has even said a word. Psychologists call this high sensitivity to social cues, and it develops precisely in those who spend a lot of time in silence and alone time, because in silence, you learn to hear what's not being said out loud. This makes such people remarkably perceptive. They rarely misjudge people at first glance. They sense insincerity a mile away. And that is why they are so selective in their communication. Not because they are arrogant, but because they see too well. If you think that someone who enjoys solitude can't make friends, you're wrong. They simply make friends differently. Such people don't accumulate a collection of acquaintances. They don't consider the number of friends a sign of success. They don't need a large social circle. They need 1, 2, maximum 3 people. But people with whom they can talk about the present, about fears, about meaning, about what's going on inside, not outside. Psychologist Robin Dunbar, author of the famous Dunbar number, discovered that most people have several layers of social connections. The innermost circle is just 3 to 5 people with whom a person is willing to open up completely. And people who enjoy solitude, consciously or not, build relationships in this deepest layer. They won't call you just to chat about nothing. But if you're really feeling down, they'll come at 2 in the morning without further ado. They remember things you said in passing 6 months ago. They don't forget. Because for them, every interaction is something meaningful, not a way to kill time. While most people are bored by silence and seek ways to fill it, those who embrace solitude use this time as fuel for growth. For them, silence isn't a void. It's the space where the most important things happen. They process experiences, draw conclusions, make plans, come up with ideas, and explore their emotions. It's their personal laboratory where no one interrupts their thought process. Many great thinkers, inventors, and artists were distinguished by precisely this trait. Isaac Newton was known for his love of solitude and said that all his discoveries were born in silence. Einstein spent hours in silent contemplation. Nikola Tesla intentionally limited social contacts to preserve his mental resources for creativity. This doesn't mean that every introvert is a genius. It does mean that the practice of silence and solitude develops the capacity for deep thinking, which is becoming increasingly rare and valuable in an age of constant information noise. This is perhaps the most common misconception about people who enjoy solitude, that they hate company or are afraid of people. In fact, they don't. They can enjoy good company. They can be witty, warm, and attentive conversationalists. They can laugh, joke, and have long conversations about important things. But afterward, they need time to recharge. Not because there's anything wrong with them, it's because social interaction requires significantly more energy from them than from extroverts. Imagine going for a run. One person runs 5 kilometers and feels energized. Another runs the same 5 kilometers and gets tired. They're both healthy. It's just that their physiology is different. It's the same with social energy. People who enjoy solitude don't build a wall between themselves and the world. They simply know how much social fuel they can expend before they need silence to recharge. And they've learned to respect this need. When someone says no to an invitation, when they don't respond to a message immediately, when they choose to stay home instead of going somewhere they should, that's not rudeness. It's self-respect. People who enjoy solitude usually understand one important thing early on. Your time and energy are limited, and how you manage them is a direct indicator of how much you respect yourself. If you waste them on things that drain you just because it's customary or to avoid offending someone, you're betraying yourself. That's not selfishness. Psychologists have long established that the ability to set boundaries and protect your personal space is one of the key signs of psychological health. People with blurred boundaries are more likely to suffer from anxiety, burnout, and feelings of emptiness. A person who can say, "I need some time alone," without guilt, without excuses, without explanations, has already come a long way toward understanding themselves, and this deserves respect, not condemnation. Here, perhaps, is the greatest gift of solitude, something that money can't buy: deep self-knowledge. Most people live their lives with almost no time alone. They fill every silence with their phones, television, conversations, music. They escape from themselves, often without even realizing it. And when silence does come, they feel uncomfortable, anxious, bored, because they're not used to meeting themselves. A person who spends a lot of time alone can't afford such an escape. They meet themselves every day. They know their fears by name. They understand what angers them, what inspires them, what gives them strength, and what takes it away. They're not surprised by their reactions because they've long since figured them out. This self-knowledge is a compass that guides such people through life with greater precision. They rarely live someone else's life. They're less likely to settle for something that doesn't suit them. They know better what they want and what they don't. And if everything I've said today sounds like you, know this: your love of solitude isn't a problem to be solved. It's a part of you worth cherishing. If you watched this video to the end, you likely recognized yourself in at least one of these 8 points, maybe several, Maybe all of them. And before we finish, I want to tell you something important. Not as a research fact, not as a psychological term, but simply as one person to another. The world we live in is structured as if extroversion is the norm, and everything else is a deviation. We're taught from childhood, be sociable, make more friends, don't sit at home, don't be silent, don't be so withdrawn. And many of you have carried this burden for years. The feeling that something is wrong with you, that you're not social enough, not cheerful enough, not normal enough. But here's the truth. Quiet people have built most of the great things in this world. They wrote books that changed lives. They invented the inventions we use every day. They were there in the darkest moments, silently, but so reliably, like no one else. Your silence isn't emptiness. It's depth. Your loneliness isn't isolation. It's a choice. And this choice doesn't mean you're afraid of the world. It means you know yourself well enough to know what you need. Cherish your silence. It nourishes you. It builds you. It makes you, you. If this video resonated with you, let us know in the comments. Write one word, one sentence, or an entire story. Whatever you want to say. It's important for me to know you're here. And it's also important for others watching this video to know they're not alone in their love of silence. Subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this, about psychology, about people, about how we work internally. Click the bell so you don't miss the next episode. And until then, in the silence where the best thoughts are born.